Good morning. That was a very muted good morning. Not very many people were ready for that, I guess. Well, I'm having some technical difficulties with my bow tie, so it's currently not on. But we'll work on that. Turn, if you would, with me this morning to Ecclesiastes, and we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. As Todd mentioned earlier, I do have the unique privilege of having more than one father, and I very much appreciate both of my dads and the impact that they've had on me and the example that both of them left for me and are leaving for me. So I appreciate them very much. And I do hope that Dave has a good Father's Day out in Idaho. This morning we're going to turn our attention and spend a little bit of time to the Book of Experience, as the little title that I've given to it. Ecclesiastes, written towards the end of Solomon's life. I believe it was written towards the end of his life as he wanted to share with his children, he wanted to share with us the result of a life lived trying to find fulfillment and satisfaction in life. As we begin, I want to go over our homework for a moment. Each week, I assign a little bit of homework to you so that we can get involved in the book and get into it. Read chapter 2 was the homework, as well as to find something that you learned that in the end only disappointed you. And so I want to kind of throw that question out there. Did anybody think of something throughout the week that you may have wanted to find, you may have wanted to really learn how to do, or you wanted a certain fact that you figured out, that you found out, that just ended up disappointing you, or that was a letdown compared to what you were expecting? Something like that. Anybody want to share something? We'll just do a couple of them this morning. It's a little bit of a weird question to kind of think through. Anything that you can think of. Something that over the course of your life you learned, but it didn't actually benefit you. It just actually disappointed you instead of gaining you a great deal of wisdom. Anything like that? Anybody think of anything? It's a more difficult question to kind of think through. I've been trying to think through, and most of the things that I think of are tied with what Solomon talks about. So I've been trying to think of things on my own that I have learned throughout the course of my time, but that weren't quite as exciting as I thought they would be. And one of the things that kind of comes to my mind is actually manufacturing and engineering. Sometimes when I was younger, I would look at certain things and I would just be amazed by how wonderfully complicated it seemed to come together and how it would work. And then I would learn how it would work, and I would realize how really simple it was, and I'd almost be disappointed. Like the Rubik's Cube. I always thought that people that worked the Rubik's Cube, that could figure it out, were just the smartest kind of people to do everything. But then I learned that in order to solve a Rubik's Cube, you just apply the same, like 3 or 4 moves constantly until it's solved. You just remember those 3 or 4 moves and keep doing them, and eventually you get there. And that was a real disappointment. I always thought it was this intense, you've got to really think like 75 moves ahead, how you're going to solve this thing. But turns out those quick fingers and everything, they were just doing the same 3 or 4 moves over and over and over again, and it all came together. That was one of the things that came to my mind. I thought they were going to be really smart. And they are. They have high IQs, sure. But solving a Rubik's Cube is just, you got to learn those few moves, and then you can get it. And I was disappointed by that, because I always thought that was like a real high IQ thing, if you could solve a Rubik's Cube. But there's some things like that in life, and there's some more serious things like that, things that we have great expectation for, but when we get there, when we learn them, they just don't fulfill those expectations. And that's one of the things that Proverbs, or that Ecclesiastes, that Solomon draws out in this book. Certain things you're going to come across, you're going to place a lot of hope and you're going to place a lot of expectation in, but when you actually learn those things, you're going to find that it doesn't quite bring satisfaction or fulfillment in the way that you maybe thought it would. And that's going to happen a lot, Solomon says. So the main question that the book deals with is life worth living, and what is the purpose of life? Solomon gave himself, he made it his job to conduct the experiments necessary to find out what things in life can bring lasting satisfaction. And this morning we're going to look at a couple of different experiments that he conducted. And I'm going to start out with this quote that they believe Napoleon said. It says, "There is but one step from the sublime to the ridiculous." Because the first thing that Solomon tried to find, or the first thing in chapter 2 that Solomon tried to find satisfaction in is mirth. And that's why I included that quote there that they believe is from Napoleon, because it's a very short distance from something that is really good to actually being super ridiculous. And that's one of the things that you see about mirth. You can have a great time in life, but there sometimes is a very short distance from having a good time and enjoying life to falling off the edge and being and ending up ridiculous. I think of alcohol immediately when I think of that. You can have a good time, but when you just change a few things, and if you get drunk, you can go from you're having a great time with family or with friends, and when you include something that you lose control of yourself, it immediately can become ridiculous. And in verse 1 through 3, that's one of the things that Solomon tried to find satisfaction in. Partying, having a good time. So the first 3 verses there, "I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth." I'm going to try to find satisfaction, a lifelong fulfilling thing with mirth. "Therefore enjoy pleasure, behold, that is also vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the sons of men, which they should do unto the sun all the days of their life." So he said, I tried the wisest thing. I tried to have fun in wise ways. I tried to have fun in really ridiculous ways. I did the whole gamut of things. I tried to find some satisfaction in both ends of the camp there, the sublime and the ridiculous. He said that's empty also. But I want to define that word mirth because it's a very unique one. The commentaries that I have, one of the definitions that they put up there is about mirth is something or someone that provides a source of sensory pleasure or happiness, such as rich foods. So Solomon, one of the things that he wanted to tackle, one of the experiments he wanted to do is, can you find satisfaction in life through partying it up? So he went for it. Tried doing it right. He tried doing it ridiculous. He tried it without alcohol. He tried it with alcohol. He did the whole gamut. Did the full experiment. All the sensory input that he could. And even before he gets out of verse 1, he says, this is also vanity. He very, very quickly came to the conclusion that going after partying, it didn't provide what I wanted. It didn't provide the satisfaction that I need. One of the things that I want to make note of is that God has made the things around us to taste, feel, and to look good. So the experiments that Solomon does, they are not meant to discourage us and leave a taste in our mouth that everything is useless in life. That's not what he's trying to say. But his experiments were to find out if those things on their own could ever provide satisfaction. Those things on their own. So there's nothing wrong with having a good time when it's not sinful. Make sure we add that in there. There's nothing wrong with having a good time. But if you rely on that to provide you a sense of worth and satisfaction on its own, he said it's just empty. It will provide no satisfaction on its own. So he went to, and he tried mirth. Finished up doing all the party things and trying that as hard as he could. He said, I just couldn't do it. Didn't provide what I wanted. It didn't give me an answer to life's questions. It didn't provide with me the satisfaction that I was looking for. And in the next set of verses, he said, I went the opposite direction and I tried the next thing. So I tried mirth, sensory pleasure, and all of that stuff. Next, he said, I went and I tried to find satisfaction in my work and in wealth. In verse 4 through 8, he says, I made me great works. I builded me houses. I planted vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards. I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, had servants born in my house. Also had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings in the provinces. Got me men singers, women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So he tackles work and wealth. And the first thing, he said, I tried outdoor projects. He tried the whole, I probably shouldn't say it, but I say it, I hope you understand what I'm saying. He tried the Greenpeace way. Living it up with nature. Taking care of nature. He tried gardening the whole way. So I applied myself to all the outdoor projects that I could. I made rivers and things to water everything that I had made. I made these beautiful, beautiful gardens in order to try to find satisfaction in outdoor projects. We'll see how that ends up. He also tried being the boss. I got me servants and maidens, servants born in my house, great possessions. So he worked hard. He had people working for him. And not only that, but the people working for him had servants born in his house. So he had servants that worked for him. He had slaves that worked for him. He was over all kinds of different projects. A lot of people answered to him because he was trying to find, is there satisfaction in being a boss, owning your own business, telling people what to do, working? Is there satisfaction that can be found there? We'll see how that ends up. And then he tried things. In verse 8 and in the end of verse 7 there, he said, I went and I got everything I could possibly get. So I tried outdoor projects, I tried work, and then I tried things. He had silver and gold and the peculiar treasures of kings. So things that only a king could enjoy and get. He got all that stuff, cattle and everything. He had every one of his needs met. He had everything that he could possibly want, all the silver and gold. It was just pouring into his treasuries. That was his next experiment. Can he find satisfaction in that? And then the last half of verse 8, he tried music. So he got all kinds of musical instruments of all sorts. He had whole choirs that he hired to sing for him. Men singers, women singers, the whole 9 yards. He tried everything. Projects, work, things, music. But will they provide satisfaction on their own? And then in verse 9 through 11, he gives us his conclusion. He says, "So I was great, and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me." So even though he did all of those things, he said, I was still very wise, very smart. In verse 10, "And whatsoever mine eye desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my portion of all my labor." So he said, I gave myself completely to work and to all of these different things. I rejoiced in what I was doing. I gave myself to it. I just put my back right into it. Then in verse 11 he says, "Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, on the labor that I had labored to do. And behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun." Solomon had more resources and wisdom than anyone else. And he tried everything. He didn't hold back. He didn't hold some in reserve. He gave it 100% to each of his experiments. He threw himself completely into it. And while he enjoyed those things while he was doing them, when those things finished, he looked back and he still did not have the satisfaction he was looking for. He had expended all of his energy and he had nothing to show for it. Now he does point out and makes it very clear, when you're in the middle of things, when you're working hard, and there is joy in that. Okay, there is satisfaction that can be had from a hard day's work. There is joy in these things. He's not lying to you and saying there's nothing good in it. But when all the projects were done, when everything was finished, what he was left with after that was emptiness. The satisfaction that those things provided didn't last. While it was enjoyable in the moment, when they were done, he had nothing left to show for it. So he just says, as he has before, it was vanity, it was empty, and it was vexation of spirit. I looked back on what I had accomplished, and I didn't feel like all of that effort had gotten me anything that could sustain me, that could provide satisfaction that my heart was looking for. I came across this quote from Warren Wiersbe. He says, "Success is full of promise until men get it. And then it is last year's nest from which the birds have flown." Success is a very difficult thing to grasp and to attain. Because like he said, the very nature of success is when you have accomplished what you think your measure of success is, you always want a little bit more. I can't remember which of the billionaires, but at one point a while back, a generation or two back, the wealthiest man was asked, when is enough, or how much is enough? And his response was, I just want $1 more. He had achieved the highest pinnacle of success that there was, but what he wanted? Just a little bit more. If you're looking for success, when you get there, you'll find that it still doesn't provide a lasting satisfaction. There may be momentary joy in that, but if you are expecting your success to provide lifelong satisfaction, it's not going to be enough. You're going to get there, and then it's just going to be outside your reach. You're going to need just $1 more. You're going to need a little bit more. Now that's, as was mentioned last week, this is not a motivational speech. So I want to make it clear at this point, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. And each of these things do provide satisfaction and joy. You can enjoy yourself doing all of these things. Spending time with friends, having a good time, doing things. You can enjoy that. There's legitimate joy to be had there. Outdoor projects, building projects, putting your back right into the work. You can really enjoy yourself doing that. There can be a great sense of satisfaction in that. Being a boss and working hard and seeing success in your job, there is satisfaction in that. There is joy in that. Things, you can enjoy the things that you have. You can enjoy the wealth that you have. Music, you can find enjoyment in music. You can have a wonderful time listening and enjoying music. They can provide satisfaction and joy. But what happens when those things are done? What happens when at the end of your life you look back? What's your conclusion? Here's one of the things that I want to really kind of hone in on. If you rely on someone or something, anything other than God to provide the satisfaction, the fulfillment, and the joy in your life, it or they will never be enough. Is there joy to be had in spending time with friends? Absolutely. But if you expect that to provide satisfaction and fulfillment in your life, it's going to fall flat. Throwing your back into your work, doing projects, getting things done, accomplishing things, is there joy to be had there? Absolutely. But if you rely on that for fulfillment and satisfaction in life, it will fall flat. And the same can be said for being a boss and working and the things that you have and music and every other category. Because only God can satisfy, fulfill, and provide a lasting joy that gets you and provides what you need and want in life. So I put this up here in very, very big letters. And I mentioned it last week. Free your jobs, your projects, your hobbies, your things, your music from the responsibility of making and keeping you happy. Yeah, I may have done something funny with the slides. It's okay, Randy. That one slide's not coming up. I must have selected something wrong there or did something wrong. Free your job, your projects, your hobbies, your things, and your music from the responsibility of making and keeping you happy. If you rely on things outside of God to make you happy and to keep you happy, they will not succeed on their own. That doesn't mean that those things cannot make you happy, but it does mean that those things can't keep you happy. So don't expect them to. That was Solomon's project. Those were his experiments. Can those things keep me happy? Will they provide what I need? And at the end of each project so far, and we'll see what his experiments say in the next one that he goes on to, he ends up and he says, nope. Tried partying, couldn't keep me happy. I tried working and doing all the projects that I could, it couldn't keep me happy. So I tried getting all the things that I could, and I even tried music, but it couldn't keep me happy. So at the end of all the energy that I expended in those things, when I subtracted God from the equation, I was left empty and just having expended a lot of energy without anything to show for it. Because only when you rely on God to keep you happy will the things around you be able to provide what you want. Only then will you be able to really enjoy the things that are around you. It's when you place on God the responsibility of keeping you happy. All of these things are wonderful, but nothing will keep you happy outside of God. This is why you can find both party people and people who never party, and both of them can be unhappy. This is why you can find lazy people and super hardworking people, and both of them can be unhappy. This is why you can find both poor people and wealthy people, both of them are unhappy. If one of those two things provided happiness, then either party people or non-party people would be happy. One of the two would be happy. But you can look at the world around you and you can see both camps are often not happy. And that was the experiment that that's the conclusion he came to. He said, on their own, neither way, mirth or, not. Both of them, I was left empty. And he tried the lazy route. He tried the hardworking route. And it didn't do what it was supposed to do. He was unsatisfied. That's why you can also find that everything around you, if you rely on it, will not be enough. But when you rely on God, you can find somebody who has nothing, and they will be happy. You can find somebody who has everything, and they can be happy when they rely on God. So how do you determine if you're relying on the wrong things to find happiness? When things get tough, what do you run to? That'll give you a clue as far as what you are maybe relying on to provide you happiness and keep you happy. When something bad happens, what is the first thing you want to do? That's one of the tests that we can conduct to see what am I actually relying on to keep me or make me happy. What's the first thing that I go to? Because no matter what it is, if it's not God, the happiness it provides will only ever be temporary. And it will never ever be enough. Let's pray, and then we'll finish off our live stream and open up for some questions. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together and to look through the book of Ecclesiastes. Thank you for Solomon and everything that he did, showing us and helping us to understand how we can have any kind of a lasting satisfaction in life, the things that we should or should not rely on to give us what we need and what we want. So we thank you and we praise you in your name.